Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! As he stood at the edge of the festivities, the man felt as if he were spinning out of control, the air thick with anticipation. His skin prickled with perspiration, betraying the crisp formality of his tailored attire. The lavish reception hall, decorated with ornate columns, offered little refuge. Gyro, trapped in his own private torment, fought for breath, unseen by the joyous crowd. Breathing techniques should have worked. Inhale, hold, exhale. But his heartbeat thundered in his ears, drowning out even his own soothing incantations. Wedding celebrations, with their boisterous laughter and melodious chaos, only amplified his sense of unease. Irony struck him. His youthfulness felt mocking. "Gyro? Hey, are you all right?" Miguel's voice cut through the turmoil, champagne flute in hand, his new marital status shimmering on his finger. Concern creased his usually carefree features as he took in his friend's pale complexion. "Fine. Just needed some air." The lie came automatically, rehearsed over years of similar episodes. Miguel's expression made it clear he didn't believe him. "Come on, I've known you since college. This is the third time you've disappeared tonight." Gyro forced a smile. "Your mom asked about my love life. Then that colleague of yours tried to set me up with her sister. Just social battery depleted." "You haven't even given your best man speech yet." Miguel placed a hand on his shoulder. "Do you need me to make an excuse?" The question only heightened Gyro's shame. Even on his best friend's wedding day, he was causing problems. The black suit he wore felt increasingly like a straitjacket. "No, I'll do it. Just give me 5 minutes." After Miguel reluctantly returned to his bride, Gyro escaped to the restroom, splashing cold water on his face. The mirror reflected the same features he'd always found unremarkable. Brown eyes, short black hair neatly styled, clean-shaven face. Nothing about his appearance explained why social interactions drained him so completely. Somehow, he made it through the rest of the evening. He delivered his speech with a forced steadiness that nobody but him seemed to notice was artificial. He danced one obligatory song. He smiled for photographs. He did everything expected of a best man while feeling like an actor playing a role he hadn't rehearsed properly. By the time he collapsed into his apartment later that night, the familiar emptiness settled over him. Another social event survived. Another evening of pretending to be normal. His phone pinged with a text from Miguel. "Thanks for everything today, brother. Couldn't have done it without you." The guilt was overwhelming. Even Miguel's genuine gratitude felt like an accusation. The next morning, Gyro called in sick to work, something he rarely did despite his anxiety. He spent hours researching social anxiety disorder, reading stories of others who struggled with the same issues. The descriptions matched his experiences with uncomfortable precision. The physical symptoms, the avoidance behaviors, the constant fear of judgment. 3 days later, his cousin Lucia visited, bringing takeout and concern. "Miguel told me you seemed off at the wedding," she said, setting containers of Thai food on his kitchen counter. "When was the last time you left this apartment?" "I went to work yesterday," he mumbled, avoiding her gaze. Lucia sighed, her bracelets jingling as she unpacked the food. "That doesn't count, and you know it." Unlike Gyro, Lucia embraced social situations. With her vibrant personality and constant stream of stories about parties and adventures, she represented everything he wasn't. "There's this party next weekend in Austin," she continued, passing him a plate. Nothing fancy, just friends of friends. You should come. Lucia, before you say no, remember how you promised to try new things this year? Gyro poked at his pad tie. Being around strangers makes me feel like I'm suffocating. What if they weren't really strangers to you, but you were a stranger to them? Lucia asked thoughtfully. What does that even mean? A mischievous smile crossed her face. What if you went as someone else? No expectations, no history, no pressure. Like wearing a disguise? Gyro laughed, but the idea lingered, oddly compelling. That's ridiculous. Is it, though? Lucia pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos. Remember last Halloween when my roommate couldn't use her costume because she got sick? I still have everything. You want me to go to a party in a Halloween costume? In April? Lucia showed him the photo. Her roommate in a teal cocktail dress and a wig of long, straight blonde hair. Not a costume, exactly. Just a different version of yourself. You're suggesting I dress as a woman? The concept should have seemed absurd, yet something about it sparked a curious sensation in his chest. Why not? Nobody in Austin knows you. Zero pressure, zero expectations. Lucia shrugged. Or stay home and keep having panic attacks at every social gathering for the rest of your life. The conversation moved on, but the seed had been planted. That night, after Lucia left, Gyro found himself returning to the idea. The thought of being someone else, just for one night, someone without his history of anxiety and awkwardness, it offered a strange kind of freedom. 3 days later, he called Lucia. If I were to try your crazy idea, would you help me? The weekend arrived with alarming speed. Gyro sat rigid on Lucia's couch as she sorted through items spread across her coffee table. Stop looking like you're facing a firing squad, she chided, holding up the teal dress. This is supposed to be fun. I've changed my mind. This is insane. This is therapeutic. Lucia handed him the dress. Your anxiety is about how people perceive Gyro, right? Well, tonight, Gyro stays home. The bathroom transformation took nearly 2 hours. Lucia worked with the focused intensity of an artist, applying foundation, contouring his face, adding mascara and eyeshadow that matched the teal dress. The blonde wig came last, its straight strands falling past his shoulders. Look, Lucia said, turning him toward the mirror. The reflection stunned him. The person staring back wasn't entirely him, yet wasn't entirely someone else either. The makeup softened his features, the wig framed his face differently, and the dress, surprisingly flattering on his runner's build, completed the metamorphosis. I need a name, he whispered, surprising himself with the request. Lucia considered for a moment. Whitney, you look like a Whitney. Whitney, he repeated, testing the name. It felt right somehow. One final touch. Lucia presented a pair of strappy silver sandals. Good thing we wear the same size. The drive to Austin passed in nervous silence. Each mile increased Whitney's apprehension, yet beneath the anxiety bubbled something new. Anticipation. The party was at a modern apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Music pulsed through the space, people clustered in conversational groups, drinks in hand. Lucia gave her a reassuring squeeze before dissolving into the crowd to greet friends. Alone, Whitney froze momentarily by the entrance, the familiar panic threatening to resurface. Then something unexpected happened. A woman approached, cocktail in hand. That dress is absolutely stunning with your coloring, she said. I'm Renee. No recognition in her eyes, no preconceptions. To Renee, Whitney was simply another guest at the party, not Gyro with his history of awkward interactions and hasty exits. "Thank you," Whitney replied, her voice pitched slightly higher than normal. "I'm Whitney." "First time here? I don't think we've met before." "Yes, I'm visiting from Houston." The lie came easily, part of this new persona. "Well, the bar's over there if you want something to drink. The guy making cocktails is a professional mixologist, and he's not stingy with the alcohol." The conversation flowed with surprising ease. Whitney found herself smiling, then laughing. When Renee introduced her to others, there was none of the paralysis that typically gripped Gyro in such situations. "You have to try dancing in those shoes," Renee insisted later, nodding toward the area where people moved to the music. "They're too gorgeous to just stand around in." Normally, dancing was firmly outside Gyro's comfort zone, but Whitney wasn't bound by those limitations. She allowed Renee to lead her to the dance floor, where the silver sandals caught the light with each movement. Hours passed without a single panic attack. Whitney danced, chatted with strangers, accepted compliments on her dress and shoes. When a man named Christopher flirted with her, she responded with playful banter instead of the awkward retreat Gyro would have executed.
"You have amazing legs,"
Christopher noted, eyes appreciative but respectful. "Runner?" 5 miles every morning," Whitney confirmed, surprising herself with the sassy tone she adopted. "Rain or shine." Near midnight, Lucia found her deep in conversation with a group discussing favorite travel destinations. "Having fun?" she whispered. Whitney's smile answered the question before her words could. "I've never felt so present." The revelation was profound. As Whitney, there was no need to escape, no urge to hide in corners or fabricate excuses to leave early. The anxiety that haunted Gyro had no power over her. The drive home was filled with animated conversation, Whitney reliving moments from the evening with an excitement Gyro rarely experienced. "So it worked?" Lucia asked as they pulled into her driveway. "It more than worked." Whitney's fingers traced the hem of the teal dress. "I didn't have a single moment of panic. Not one." "That's amazing, see?"
"Sometimes you just need to step outside yourself."
Later, transformed back into Gyro, with the makeup removed and dressed in his own clothes, he sat in his car, the blonde wig and teal dress carefully packed in a bag beside him. The night had offered a glimpse of what life could be without the constant weight of anxiety. The thought of going back to his regular existence, with its carefully managed interactions and limited social engagements, felt suddenly unbearable. 2 weeks later, Gyro stood before the mirror in his apartment, applying mascara with the careful precision Lucia had taught him. The blonde wig, now his own purchase rather than a borrowed item, waited on its stand. A new dress, a deep burgundy with a modest neckline but daring hemline, hung ready on the closet door. Whitney was going out again, this time to a book club Gyro had always been interested in, but never brave enough to attend. The silver sandals completed the outfit, now familiar and comfortable. This time, there was no Lucia for support, no familiar face in the crowd. Whitney entered the bookstore cafe alone, the book under her arm providing a prop to steady her nerves. "First time?" asked the woman checking names at the door. Her silver hair was cut in a stylish bob, her smile genuine. "Yes," Whitney replied, confidence growing with each word. "I've wanted to join for ages." "Well, we're delighted to have you. I'm Eleanor, the insufferable taskmaster who selects the books. And you are?" "Whitney." The name came naturally now, bringing with it the freedom to engage without Gyro's social constraints. The book club meeting passed in a blur of literary discussion and easy conversation. Whitney offered opinions Gyro would have kept silent, laughed openly at jokes, and even challenged a particularly pretentious analysis from a man who clearly hadn't read the entire book. "That's not supported by the text," she stated firmly, drawing surprised looks from the group. The characters' motivations were clearly established in the 3rd chapter. Rather than the negative judgment Gyro would have feared, Whitney's comment earned nods of agreement and an invitation to coffee afterward with several members. 2 outings became 4, then 8. Whitney expanded her territory: an art gallery opening, a cooking class, a concert in the park. Each successful interaction built upon the last, creating a foundation of confidence. Gyro's wardrobe slowly transformed as well. Alongside the practical suits and casual wear hung dresses in various colors, blouses, skirts, all chosen to complement the silver sandals that had become Whitney's signature footwear. A drawer in his bathroom now contained makeup, arranged with methodical care. Only at work did he maintain his original identity, though even there, subtle changes emerged. Colleagues noted his increased participation in meetings, his willingness to join lunch outings, his more relaxed demeanor.
"Whatever you're doing, keep it up,"
his manager commented after he successfully presented a project to senior leadership without a trace of his former anxiety.
"You seem like a different person lately."
The irony of the statement wasn't lost on him. 6 months after the first party in Austin, Gyro sat across from Dr. Bennett, a therapist specializing in gender identity and anxiety disorders. "So Whitney began as a way to escape social anxiety," Dr. Bennett summarized, her expression thoughtful rather than judgmental. "But now you're finding the boundaries between Gyro and Whitney are blurring?" "Yes." The admission felt both terrifying and freeing. "At first I was playing a role. Now it feels like I'm most myself when I'm Whitney." "Many people discover aspects of themselves through experimentation," Dr. Bennett noted. "Have you considered that Whitney isn't an escape from yourself, but perhaps a more authentic expression of who you are?" The question lingered long after the session ended. Gyro had entered therapy seeking clarity about his unusual coping mechanism. Instead, he found himself considering possibilities that went far beyond anxiety management. That evening, standing before the mirror in the burgundy dress, the blonde wig styled in loose waves, Whitney studied her reflection with new perspective. Was this merely a disguise that allowed Gyro to function in social settings? Or was Gyro the actual disguise she had been wearing all her life? The next 4 months brought weekly therapy sessions, extensive reading, and conversations with members of the transgender community. Whitney began to understand that what had started as an experiment in social anxiety management had unveiled a truth she had always subconsciously known. 1 year after Miguel's wedding, Whitney made her decision. The transition would be gradual, hormone therapy first, then legal name change, with other steps to follow as she felt ready. She would live authentically, no longer dividing her life between 2 identities. Telling Lucia was the easiest part. "I've watched you become more yourself every time you're Whitney," her cousin said, eyes bright with unshed tears. "I just wanted to help with your anxiety, but I think we discovered something much more important." Miguel proved equally supportive, though initially confused.
"So, my best man is becoming a woman?"
He clarified over coffee, brow furrowed as he processed the information. "Becoming the woman I always was," Whitney corrected gently. "I just didn't have the framework to understand it before." Her parents required more time to adjust, moving through stages of disbelief and concern before reaching tentative acceptance.
We just want you to be happy,
her mother finally said. It will take time for us to understand completely, but we're trying. The workplace transition was planned methodically, with HR support and a carefully crafted announcement. To Whitney's surprise, most colleagues adapted quickly, stumbling occasionally over pronouns but making genuine efforts to respect her identity. The silver lining is that your wardrobe was always so boring before, joked a female colleague who became an unexpected ally. Now we can actually talk fashion. Not everyone was immediately supportive. Some friends drifted away, uncomfortable with the change. Family gatherings occasionally turned tense when certain relatives deliberately used her former name. Online dating revealed another challenge. Men who fetishized her transition or disappeared when they learned her history. Through it all, Whitney maintained the confidence that had first emerged in that teal dress and silver sandals. The anxiety that had once controlled Gyro's life diminished dramatically as she aligned her outer presentation with her inner truth. Hormone therapy gradually softened her features and redistributed body fat, creating curves that complemented her naturally slim build. Her own hair, now growing out, was approaching the length where the blonde wig would soon be unnecessary. Voice training altered her speaking patterns, creating a tone that matched her presentation. The silver sandals remained a constant, now joined by an expanding collection of footwear that expressed different facets of Whitney's personality: practical flats for workdays, elegant heels for special occasions, comfortable boots for weekend outings. 2 years after the wedding panic attack, Whitney attended another ceremony, Miguel and his wife renewing their vows on their anniversary. This time, she wore a forest green dress that highlighted her now feminine figure, her natural blonde hair styled in soft waves, the silver sandals updated but still reminiscent of that first transformative night.
You look happy,
Miguel observed during the reception. No hiding behind columns necessary this time.
Actually, you look radiant.
I am happy, Whitney confirmed, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing server. For the first time, I'm not fighting against myself. Remember how you could barely give a toast at our wedding? Now look at you, working the room like you were born for it. Whitney laughed, the sound genuine and unrestrained. In a way, I was. Later, as couples filled the dance floor, a man approached, tall, with kind eyes and an easy smile.
I've been working up the courage to ask you to dance, he admitted. I'm Daniel.
2 years ago, such an interaction would have sent Gyro into a panic. Now, Whitney smiled, setting down her glass. I'd love to. As they moved to the music, Whitney reflected on the journey that had brought her here. What began as a desperate attempt to escape anxiety had instead led her home to herself. The teal dress and borrowed wig had been a beginning, not a disguise, but a revelation.
You're an amazing dancer,
Daniel commented, his hand respectful at her waist. Thank you, Whitney replied, the silver sandals catching the light as they moved. I've had some practice. The music continued, and Whitney danced without hesitation, without fear. Her body, her mind, and her spirit finally moving in harmony. The following spring brought new beginnings in multiple forms. Whitney accepted a promotion that involved giving presentations to large groups, something that would have been unthinkable for Gyro. Her relationship with Daniel deepened, built on honesty and mutual respect. When she shared her full history, his response was simple. Thank you for trusting me with your story. Her transition continued, each step bringing her closer to complete alignment. The milestones were celebrated with the growing circle of friends who had supported her journey. The legal name change, The day she donated the last of Gyro's clothing, the first family holiday where everyone used her correct name without stumbling. On the 3rd anniversary of Miguel's wedding, Whitney hosted a dinner party in her apartment, something the socially anxious Gyro could never have imagined. 8 people gathered around her table, conversation flowing as easily as the wine. To Whitney! Lucia raised her glass, eyes shining with pride. Who taught us all about courage and authenticity? And fashion? Added Miguel with a wink. Let's not forget the fashion upgrade. Laughter rippled around the table as Whitney raised her own glass. To silver sandals and teal dresses, she said. Sometimes the most unexpected paths lead exactly where we need to go. Later, after the guests had departed, and Daniel helped with the last of the cleanup, Whitney stood on her balcony, the night air cool against her skin. The city lights spread before her, a tapestry of possibilities she once thought beyond her reach. Penny for your thoughts, Daniel said, joining her with 2 mugs of tea. Whitney accepted the warm cup, leaning slightly against his solid presence. I was just thinking about fear, how it can either trap you or transform you, depending on what you do with it. And which did it do for you? Both, she admitted. It trapped Gyro for years, but it also created the desperation that led to Whitney. Without that panic attack at the wedding, I might never have found myself. Daniel's arm circled her waist. Well, I for one am grateful for whatever path brought you here. Whitney smiled, thinking of the silver sandals now placed neatly in her closet, alongside dozens of other shoes acquired on her journey. Those first strappy heels held a special place in her collection, a reminder that sometimes liberation comes in unexpected packages. Inside, her phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Bennett, confirming their final therapy session the following week. After 3 years of work, both had agreed Whitney had developed the tools needed to navigate her life without regular professional support. The message included a quote they had discussed in an early session. Perhaps the butterfly is proof that you can go through a great deal of darkness yet become something beautiful. Whitney had indeed emerged from darkness, not just the shadow of anxiety, but the deeper darkness of living disconnected from her true self. The transformation hadn't been instantaneous or magical like a butterfly's, but rather a deliberate process of becoming. Coming to bed? Daniel asked, finishing his tea. In a minute, Whitney promised, watching as he headed inside. Alone with the night sky, she took a moment to honor the journey. Gyro's quiet strength had given her the foundation to build upon. The anxiety that once seemed like her greatest weakness had ultimately guided her toward her greatest truth. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to exercise her voice, new chances to step confidently into the world as her authentic self. But tonight, Whitney simply existed in the beautiful present, grateful for the unexpected path that had led her home. The silver sandals waited in her closet, no longer needed as a transformation tool, but kept as a cherished memento. Whitney had found something far more valuable than a temporary escape from anxiety. She had discovered the courage to be wholly, unapologetically herself. And in that discovery, she had found true freedom.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!